Hi, how you doing? Welcome back to Series 2 of Hurtwood Beyond the Hill. As always, we've got another great guest lined up for you today, so let's dive in. My guest has had quite the CV, from winning the BBC's Young Apprentice to studying at both the University of Oxford and Edinburgh. She's even founded an award-winning behavioural science platform and now lives in New York and works for Google. She really has done it all. I would say she's the perfect example of what a Hurtwood student should do. She studied here from 2011 to 2013, and we are so pleased that she is back on the hill once more. Please welcome award-winning behavioural scientist and ex-Hurtwood pupil, Zara Brownless, everyone! Clap yourself, Zara, if you like. Yeah,
Thank
very
you,
good. How you doing? You okay?
Pretty excellent. Yeah,
Good.
pretty excellent.
What is it like? Is this first time back at the school since you've left?
No, I was actually, funnily enough, back over Christmas to see the last Christmas musical.
Okay.
The
Did you
desire
enjoy
just
it?
overcame me, as it often does. You're like, I need to see a Hurtwood Christmas musical. It was wonderful. It was the Legally Blonde production.
Oh, it's fantastic. I saw
Such
that as well.
a talented cast.
Like every year it gets better as well. Like, it's incredible.
It's incredible.
We're going to talk about everything you did as well, because you were pretty incredible here as well. But first, I just want to ask, are you celebrating a special day today?
It actually is my 30th birthday today.
On the day of recording?
On the day of recording.
That is incredible.
Yes,
We thought we'd bring you a little cake.
Stop.
Happy birthday to
Guys.
you. Harmonise, guys. Happy birthday, dear Zara. Oh, she's crying. Happy birthday to you. Round of applause, guys.
Guys.
I've been up so early making that this morning, you have no idea.
That is just the Hurtwood way,
It is,
isn't it?
and you
What
have
a
to keep it there for the
beautiful
rest of the
touch.
interview.
I'm going to
No.
hold it like this for the whole interview.
You've got it. We
Thanks
thought we'd
so
mark
much,
and say
guys.
thank you for coming on your special day as well. So a massive happy birthday. That's as good as the surprises get today. So should we take that off you? And then we can split some up
I'll
for
let
you
myself
later.
be torn from it momentarily.
Amazing. Well, a massive happy birthday.
Thank
But that's
you.
not what we're here to talk about today, because you were at Hurtwood between 2011 and 2013.
I'm going to take your word for it, James. Yeah, that sounds about right.
That's what I'm being told. That's what I'm being told, which is good for me. Being back, every time you come back, whether it's Christmas or today, first impressions, is it nostalgic? What's the feeling you get when you're back here?
It somehow feels more magical each time. I was actually bringing my partner over to see it today, and he saw the facade of the front house coming up and was like, wow. And I remember the very first time I ever came to Hurtwood, when I was, considering where I would come, and it's a truly magical place to enter into, and somehow that hasn't gone away even after going here for years. So yeah, it was really magical to come back.
Which I think that's the perfect way to describe it. It is magic.
It is.
On a hill in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, my partner doesn't believe that I didn't take a potions class here. Just refuses to
we did
believe.
Quidditch and everything.
Yeah. It's very much sort of like almost like whimsical British storytale type school. So yeah.
We're going to go through your journey to get to Hurtwood, during Hurtwood and after it. So lots to get through today. But I said it in the intro, you have been on this most remarkable journey. But even before you came to the school, you were already achieving amazing things. What I want to work out is, what were you like as a child, a young Zara? Were you always ambitious? Take me back to those days.
Awfully, too much so. Awfully precocious,
No.
overly serious child. That actually was one of the things that Hurtwood helped gear shift in me, was I was a very overly serious child, I think. I was very studious, took myself and life very seriously, as the English have a propensity to do, I should say. We'll get on to this later, but I went and lived in Scotland and Ireland and now in New York, and it's all helped kind of tease out of me a sort of lightness that I think as a child I found hard to tap into. And I think Hurtwood for me was the beginning of being able to tap into that lightness and that sense of whimsy.
And open your eyes to different words. It's very diverse culture.
Very
at Hurtwood House,
diverse
isn't it?
culture in Hurtwood. It's a little sanctuary, really unlike any other school I've ever been to or visited. It just really helped bring out that sense of a bit more wonder and playfulness
Which is an
in the
amazing
world.
thing.
Which is an amazing thing, and you need that.
Absolutely. Did you have a dream, the first time you can remember, of what you wanted to be when you're older? Because from reading what you've done, you could have done anything you ever wanted. So what was the dream as a kid?
Well, the book isn't closed yet, so we'll see where we end up at the end of it all. But to be quite frank, when I was coming to Hurtwood, I probably had my eye on being a director.
Oh, okay, really,
I liked the idea of being, or more fundamentally, I should say, being a storyteller. And there are a number of different careers I entertained in that way, like journalism, like author, filmmaker, actor. Funnily enough, what was absolutely not on the list is what I'm currently doing, as is so often the case. Yeah. But yeah, that was probably where my head was at.
And we should mention where we are in this room and that chair that you're sitting on, which is very low to the ground, isn't it?
It keeps you humble, this chair. It keeps you humble. It keeps you low to the ground.
But this is the film. This is Luke's room, isn't it?
This is the chair of Luke, who runs our fantastic film academy and who was a great mentor to me while I was here. This chair has been the source of many a rumination. Many a contemplation, many an editing decision.
Yes.
And this shed that we are in right now, this glorious shed that is exactly the same as it was back when I was originally here, is where a lot of editing goes on, and is where I spent an awful lot of time second guessing every editing decision of the films I would have been a part of while I was here. So it's a wonderful, wonderful place to be back in.
It's a room of character as well. It really, really is. So many people throughout the years coming in and doing what you're saying.
Nothing but character, really. Some may say it lacks a sense of organisation. Some may say it lacks a sense. But I think that, you to have an abundance of character, sometimes you need to forego other things, And that's what's so wonderful about this space. All of the organisation happens here.
Yes.
It happens on the screen in the project.
Yes.
You need to be allowed to have the wonderful, beautifully unstructured chaos of the shed to be able to produce the wonderfully coherent narratives of the films.
And that's what Hurtwood's all about, isn't it?
Yes.
It's kind of organised chaos, and that's what I love about it sometimes.
Absolutely.
In terms of what you do now, if we reflect on your childhood, was there ever an inkling when you were younger, this is what you would go on to do?
Never. I would have never thought of myself as someone that had the mind of like a researcher or a scientist. I would have always thought of myself as having the mind of maybe a storyteller, a creative. I was analytical, but somehow I didn't quite connect the dot between being analytical and being good at asking questions and finding the answers. And we'll get into this more maybe later, but I had a serious inflection point in my life where I pivoted from studying English and storytelling in that way to studying a different part of storytelling, which is getting at the human condition directly and studying psychology. And I had this amazing sort of if it was a movie, it would have been that montage where the main character realizes this thing that's been staring them in the face the whole movie thus far. And it was the fact that actually I really did have the mind of a researcher. And that's what I do nowadays. I do research in Google, but it's funny how it can be staring you in the face for years and you don't quite see it.
It's my dad, who's turning 60 next year. He works in the banking industry, and he still says he doesn't know what he wants to do when he's older.
It's wonderful.
Which is a great thing, because you're always developing and always finding that as well, which is what you're saying there. Let me take you back to 2011, which is when you started Hurtwood. But can we talk about The Apprentice quickly?
We can talk about The Apprentice.
What's called The Young Apprentice? Is that the official title?
The Young Apprentice, yes.
Which you were victorious in.
Thank you, yes, just about.
Tell me about that experience, how it all came about. What a cool thing to do.
Bizarre thing to do.
Yeah.
I don't know how I stumbled up there at 16. I think I'd seen Stella English, who was this female contestant on The Adult Apprentice a couple of years before when I was just on family holiday over Christmas or something. I remember seeing her pitching something and I thought, I could do that. I can pitch something. And at this time I was sort of acting in school, but I wasn't, a business person.
Sure, yeah.
To this day, I've never studied business a day in my life. But I thought, I can do that. I can stand up and tell a powerful story about why you should believe in something or buy something. And so I sort of looked it up, ended up applying, and the one domino after the next just kept falling, really. You get invited to the first audition. Huge day in London, thousands of kids filling into this building in London. And it was a bizarre thing, really the physical metaphor was amazing because you would kind of ascend through the floors of this building as you passed each round of interviews.
Yeah.
And the whole thing lasted so long. We had to get there early in the morning, and if you survived the whole day, you were there till late at night. My mum, bless her, sat in the waiting room the whole day just waiting to see when her child would emerge. And then you pass the next thing and the next thing, and all of a sudden it's we'd love you to be on the show, and then you're on the show, and then you're just surviving week to week to week, and then you're at the end of it, and it's you're the Young Apprentice. Wow, how did this
Reflecting on that kind of whole experience, is there things you learned during that time that you still use today?
Hugely.
Yeah.
Hugely.
So tell me kind of what things.
I remember using the metaphor a lot when I later went on to do rowing in big 8-person crews. there's a sense of like leaving your ego at the door that you have to do with rowing, where you have to make the best decision for the boat. And actually a boat moves swiftest across the water when all of the rowers are not trying to like outperform each other, trying to pull harder or quicker. It's when you're totally in sync and in unison. And there's that element of leaving ego at the door, which is actually, shockingly, you may not believe me, for a show like The Apprentice, which seems so egocentric.
Sure, yeah.
Huge element of having to leave your ego at the door, because I remember thinking about early on, like, if I just think about this show strategically, for anyone that doesn't know, in The Apprentice, if your team wins that weekly challenge, you're safe.
Yeah.
You're not getting fired. You'll see it through right to the very final of the show if you simply operate by the mentality that I'm going to make the best decision for the task, for the project, for the team. And that means not necessarily always like pushing for my idea over other people's if I think other people have had a better idea. It means putting the right people in charge of the right tasks if you're in a sort of project management role for that project, but truly making the best decision for the bigger thing rather than caring about your own ego and whether like your name is on the final decision.
Yeah.
And that's something which was, I think, rare to learn at 16 years old.
That's what I was going to say. And it really is that element of teamwork makes the dream work kind of thing.
Teamwork makes the dream work, like check your ego at the door. And it really sort of taught me that in a brutal way. I learned that, honestly, I think the first few episodes of the show, I think I survived purely on that ground, purely on like not thinking about myself as an individual and how I was going to shine, but just thinking about how do I make the best decision for this project, this task that I'm currently embroiled in. And
you said so many incredible things during that time, including this quote that I love and I use for my life now. Let me read it to you. It says, "Dreamers dream, people who achieve..." Why are you laughing? It's so good. I mean, it's incredible for a 16-year-old. But so dreamers dream, people who achieve, wake up, get out there and start doing stuff to make their dreams happen. I love it.
Thanks,
I don't think I've ever heard a 16-year-old say it. You're so driven.
Driven I was. I think when I listen back to that quote, and that's often the one that's plucked out as like, and I'm very proud of that quote in a way.
Website, that's the one. Like,
like it was emblematic of, I think, my ethos and I take great pride in the fact that behind that saying is simply someone saying, you have to do the work. You have to do the work. You can't expect things to be handed to you. And if you have a dream, you owe it to yourself to not just let that dream live in your mind, but to get out there and take action in the world to make it happen.
And it's something you did incredibly well. So let's talk, Hurtwood. You arrive here already as a champion of Young Apprentice in 2011. You study English, maths, history, theatre. Mm-hmm. You also do an Ep2.
Yeah.
Very heavyweight subjects. I'm loving it. What drew you to the school, first and foremost, initially? Why here?
I got the sense, and this had been a strong motivator in where I had picked all of the schools I had chosen up until this point in my life. I got the sense that I would be given the space and the support to be who I wanted to be here. I didn't feel like I was going to be shoved into a cookie cutter mold and like a sausage making factory where you'd have 12 different versions of me pumped out in other students by the end of the year. Yeah. I felt like I would be, and like I say, that needs both space and support. You need to be able to give people the room and the freedom to choose what they're going to invest their time and their energies in, while also supporting them once they've started to make that investment and have both the skill and the resources as a school to be able to take that person's initiative and their drive and shuttle them along the way.
And support them, but it's not getting in the way and letting you be your
Exactly,
own self.
it's a delicate balance.
Which is an incredible balance. And talking of balance, you balance all these subjects. You did an Ep2, which is an extended project qualification.
Damn right, yeah.
Thank you. What was yours on? What was yours all about?
Mine was on how we adapt stories from book to film. Oh. Yeah, I used A Clockwork Orange as my case study. So I was looking at like the Anthony Burgess original text and the Stanley Kubrick film adaptation. And I was really interested in both the artistic and the scientific differences between the mediums of telling story on the word-by-word medium of a book versus the frame-by-frame medium of a film. Incredible. And I was really interested in like, what happens when you take a story between those mediums? Like, even if you take the story exactly as it is, what's different about that frame-by-frame process from the word-by-word process? But then I also had to acknowledge the fact, as we have to do when we're talking about which is better, the book or the movie, how the endings of stories are so often changed when we adapt them to movies. And that was hugely the case in A Clockwork Orange.
To dramatise them sometimes?
Sometimes it's to dramatise them. Sometimes I think there's an idea that people need a story to wrap up a bit more neatly sometimes in film than in book. Sometimes we're willing to entertain a little more grey looseness. But there's a number of different reasons why we have to change the ending. So I was also looking at that as well. It was really interesting. It was like a little mini thesis.
Yeah.
Good prep for going to university. I definitely recommend if someone's like, I'm looking forward to the space and the freedom to like explore a topic area deeply when I get to uni and write my big thesis on something. The EPQ is a great way to trial that out before you get there.
And alongside all that stuff that is technically A levels, the EPQ is an optional one, but it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you did everything and you threw yourself into it. Let me ask this question early doors, because a lot of teachers stay here over the years. Do you have a favourite teacher? Did you have a favourite teacher?
Such a hard
Throw some people under the bus, go on.
I reckon I could get you down to a short list.
Let's have the short list, I like that.
Of 3 to 4 names, okay?
Okay, go on.
So we've mentioned Luke, who was, worked with me a lot in film academy. I never actually took film here, shockingly.
Well, even though I was really... Did you media or...
No, and I only did theatre the first year either. So I didn't study film, but I was hugely involved in the film academy. And Luke was a fantastic mentor and friend to me. So definitely Luke would have to be out there. I have to give credit to my English teachers, given that they did help me get into Oxford on English.
We'll credit that.
I had Bobby and Terry. They were both fantastic. I have a soft spot in my heart for Terry because he was the one that saw me through that crucial second year where you're really, getting it all finally under your belt. He also oversaw the debating society that myself and a fellow English student were in. So yeah, and Terry was someone that just hugely helped me engage in the often uncomfortable nuance that exists in the world, like the conflicting things that can be true at the same time. And English is great for that. So absolutely big props to Terry and Bobby for that. And then Jackie was a wonderfully eclectic history teacher I had here that I love as well. And, I also just have a hugely warm spot in my heart for all of the creative staff are hard to pick between, like, got Doug and Andy.
Of course,
Huge characters and personalities. But actually, in terms of theatre, I'm going to save my final spot actually for someone who wasn't a teacher, but was the director of the second year acting production that goes on each year. We did The Last Days of Judas Iscariot. Adrian Rawlings, or H as he prefers to go by, who plays James Potter in the Harry Potter movies. He was our wonderful director, and that production was a wonderful, wonderful thing to work on, a wonderful source material, wonderful director. I got to play the part of a lawyer in the afterlife defending Judas Iscariot's right to proceed to heaven.
Only at Hurtwood.
Where else do you get to play a role like that? And again, I wasn't even a theatre student at the time, nor was I a part of the acting academy, so the acting company rather. So it was a wonderful opportunity, and to this day is probably my most precious acting memory.
Really?
And
it's key the word you said there, opportunity, because you can study your English, your maths, your history, get your A levels in that. But the days are so long at Hurtwood, they're designed in that way to give you hours to go and be creative in the film academy and theatre. But also, am I right in thinking you went to Cuba?
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Yeah. That was with the film academy, wasn't it?
Well, it was with history and film academy.
Right, okay.
So I went as part of, we were studying the Cold War. So I went with Jackie, that wonderful eclectic history. She was ended up being mayor of Brighton. It's amazing. After she went on from Hurtwood. Hurtwood is home to many a fantastic individual, not just in the student base.
Yes.
But in the teaching base as well. So it was a history lesson, but it was also a filming opportunity. I remember taking a chunky bit of filming equipment out with me and made a film on contrasting the sort of slightly more urban life of Havana with the really rural farming communities out in Viñales. And it was super cool.
So cool. What an incredible thing to do at that age as well.
Who at 17 is going to Cuba and making a movie?
I'm 22.
I think many people get their whole lives without going to Cuba. I mean, amazing opportunity.
You also had time to be in some musical. I mean, you did Les Mis, didn't you?
I did Les Mis, yes.
What can you remember of Les Mis? Can you remember much of it?
I remember being just in awe of the talent of my peers. We had a number of very talented cast members that year. It's particularly some male actors and singers who were just tremendously talented. I actually watched back the DVD just a couple months ago.
No way.
And it stands the test of time. The set design, the singing, the costume, the direction. It's still such an enjoyable production. You
said you were in awe. And I know, because I've got a photo book. I can just find it. It's somewhere behind.
Yeah, you'll definitely find a picture there of me just sort of looking
I'll let you flick through. I think you put some post-it notes on where you appear. Have a flick through that now.
Thank you.
Because one of the photos you're like, like that.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful acting.
Thank you. Oh, it wasn't acting. I genuinely was just in awe. Yeah. So there's some ones of me here being prostitute, a lady of the night.
Yeah. What was the lady of the night?
But this woman just trying to survive.
Yes.
This is me right here in the blue corset, looking in awe up here at Rose Savage.
Yes.
This is the awe we're talking about. Looking in awe at Rose Savage, who was just a idyllic voice, just a voice of an angel. Was tremendously talented, and actually Sam Hindmarsh, who played Marius in this production, again, exquisite voice, was a dear friend. His mum was actually my drama teacher before I came to Hurtwood, and put me in touch with the school. So we have a lot to credit Felicity Hindmarsh for with bringing me to Hurtwood in the first place. Yeah.
What's it like looking at all those back? Is it just that nostalgia?
Yeah, I mean, but that's the funny thing with Hurtwood. It's not just nostalgia; it's genuine, like. Maybe awe is the word, but it's...
Can we say joy?
It's just so impressive.
Yeah.
Like, I look at this and I think about just how truly impressive these productions were.
Yeah.
And it's not... Even if I totally extract my own sense of involvement in it, this isn't anything nostalgic in that way. It's like genuine, objective talent. There's simply no other school production I've ever seen that does things like Hurtwood does.
You're absolutely right.
I mean, like, there's this amazing picture here of all of us during, I think, maybe the end of, like, One Day More, one of the big, like, maybe
Classic.
end of Act 1 numbers. I'm right here, stood beside... In fact, is that Sam? Yeah. No, it's not. He's on the other side. But, like, this, like, what a fantastic, like, stage setup. Like, just the quantity and the size of the cast is a testament to how much talent there was in the room. Like, so it's nostalgia, but it's also just genuine awe and respect for the amazing work.
Because the musicals are like, you have to remember, it's a school production, but it's West End band.
That's the thing. That's the thing. It's so much talent here from the real outside industry has come to Hurtwood, and so many of these people who are now on West End and Broadway stages themselves, and it doesn't surprise me in the slightest.
And it's also impressive, as you said, but what was so impressive, and the question I'm so wanting to ask you, is how did you balance it all? You mentioned you gave up sleep, but if there's a student who's here now, or someone that's going to join, who wants to do everything, take every opportunity, what's your advice to them to do it all?
Don't give up sleep.
We don't advise that. Yeah.
don't want to endorse that. I would say that you can never do everything. There's a behavioural science concept called subtractive solutions, which is ways that we make things better by taking away, not by adding. Like, as human beings, we're very biased towards creativity and inventiveness and adding. But we often overlook the parts of life where you can't simply add. You only have so many hours in the day is the big one, right? You can be more efficient with your time, for sure, but you can't add extra hours into the day. And you can optimize your energy and your focus to a certain degree, but again, there's a limit that you can't push past. Anything that you want to add into your life, your schedule, your accomplishments, that space in your time, in your resources, your energy is coming from something else. So I think you have to be very selective. Like, I was very focused on getting the grades I needed to get into Oxford. I adored my subjects, but to be quite frank, like, there were compromises I made at times in other parts of life. Like, there is an incredibly vibrant social community here at Hurtwood, and there's abundant creative opportunities, but really I had to be very selective about which creative opportunities I got involved with here. Like, if I were coming back here again, there would be a million, like, clubs and groups and different things I would want to be involved in, but you have to prioritize, you have to force rank to a degree in life.
Sure.
And it would, much as I would love to, sit here and say, if you just manage your time this way, you can do everything you want to do, but my grandpa famously used to say, like, you can have anything, but not everything.
Yeah. Great line, yeah.
Which is great. And I think you have to be selective. You have to think, what is the most important thing for me to get out of this time? Like, I'm even, willing to admit that there were nights when I would have loved to hang out with my friends and have more social time. And to be frank, like, I prioritized getting the most out of, like, the creative opportunities I was involved in and my studies.
Yeah.
But the time you have at Hurtwood is very precious. If you choose to prioritize, like, forming close bonds and friendships with the people you're here with, that's also equally very valuable. Yeah. I have a couple of friends I was very close to while I was here, but I'm a small circle kind of person, we have a lot of social butterflies here at Hurtwood.
Yeah.
I have my few pillars.
Do you stay in touch with some Hurtwood people?
One of them I've stayed in touch with this whole time. She came to see my TED talk in 2018. She then moved out to Manhattan, and I now live about half an hour away from her
amazing.
in New York, and we see each other every week.
Oh.
So like, one of the most important friendships to me in my life, and it was made here at Hurtwood. But you know, that's one person. Like, I think that's the funny thing when you think about what are you ultimately going to take away from a place, and you think everything you're doing is going to be really consequential in the long run. In the long run, you might have like a few really strong close friends and a few lines of creative or academic interests that have blossomed here, and those will see you through. But a lot of stuff falls away. So I try and think about what's the stuff that's probably going to fall away, and how can I prioritise my time on the things that are really going to see me through.
That's amazing advice. So if there's any Hurtwood students, listen, do that and you'll be successful. Before we leave Hurtwood, I want to kind of show you the impression and this energy and passion that you had was well picked up on, because I've got your school report.
You do? Yeah. Oh, God.
I can get it off my iPad. I'll go for a few because we will be here for hours if we go for everything. But you were such an incredible student, and it was rightly picked up. Let's go through English. They say, as I type this report, I'm looking at another perfect set of grades for Zara, and she continues to win my admiration for the way she approaches English in such a dedicated way. That's English. If we look at history, Zara's an amazing student. She sets the highest standards for herself, and she achieves them. She has grit, determination, and such intelligence. Let's go to Cosmo's report, headmaster. He says, congratulations, Zara. You have made a magnificent success of your Hurtwood career. Academically, creatively, that one, and socially, you've made the most of every opportunity, and it really has been rewarding to see you living life to the full and so evidently relishing your Hurtwood experience. What's it like hearing that back? Can you remember reading your school report?
Do you know, if only school reports were a thing that saw us through the rest of life, because they're a wonderful little like a time capsule of how you were doing that year, you know. Employers don't really tend to do it quite the same way. Incredibly kind words of recognition there from people that honestly, you know, at that time in my life, the words of recognition from people like that meant everything to me.
Yeah. You leave Hurtwood then, and we go to university.
Yes.
So let's start with the university.
No words like God, Oxford. You'd be lucky to get words like that once you leave.
Oh, really? Do they not do that?
Well, this is the thing. Like, this is what is so important about having a culture like that when you're at school. Being able to hear, like, you did a great job. Like, as we all know, as you get out into the working world, that becomes more and more sparse. Sure. You have to have more of an internal well of, I'm doing well, I'm recognition and validation. I think when I went from Hurtwood into Oxford, again, incredibly competitive, highly performing environments. And don't get me wrong, there were moments where you would have, similar praise, but they start becoming fewer and farther between. Not for lack of, doing well, but just because that's the transition you have to make, going from childhood into adulthood. But
you did go to Oxford and do some really difficult stuff, so let's go through it. Went to the University of Oxford to study experimental psychology, philosophy, and linguistics. Yes. Now, what do these big words mean, please? What were you doing?
They are the study of the human mind and behaviour from different vantage points. So psychology is coming at it from a scientific vantage point, looking at the brain and its processes. Yeah. Philosophy is coming at it from a slightly more existential point. And linguistics is coming at it from the point of view of language, which is such a wonderful, uniquely human phenomena. So I loved it.
That's incredible, but like you can tell I didn't go to uni. Can you say psychology, philosophy? Highlight of being at Oxford, kind of let us into that world. Was there a highlight?
In quite a Hurtwoodian way, one of the highlights was the breadth of things I was able to be involved in there. So I represented Oxford in rowing,
in the race,
in Henley Royal Regatta as one of their beginner crews. Ballroom dance. I was on their novice university team.
Maybe
that would have been a dream, an absolute dream. Still is. Strictly, if you're listening, you know where to find me. And obviously you do like all of these wonderful subjects. I was part of the Oxford Union, which is the debating society there. And obviously there's lectures and fascinating speakers coming. I did the TED Talk. I actually, speaking of an important lesson I learned at Oxford, like I really wanted to do a TED Talk for a long while, and I had thrown my hat in the ring for TEDx Oxford, which is one of the biggest TEDx events in the UK, and made it all the way through to the finals because they did a sort of voting system. Didn't make it through, but made it through the next year when I went to University of Edinburgh for my master's. But a good lesson in, like, you only hear about what, the successes in life. What you don't hear about are the times when people threw their hat in the ring and didn't get picked up. But that's an important part of the process. It was the variety of things I was able to be involved in Oxford was
and that was kind of my next question. It was, do you feel ready to make the move from Hurtwood to Oxford? But I guess yes, because you'd experienced this busy life.
Yeah, I would say that, like, I hadn't I can't say I planned this, but in hindsight, coming to a boarding school before going away to university, especially as someone that had been in just like day school beforehand, and single sex as well. I came from an all-girls school before I came to Hurtwood. Yeah. So like having that transition of being in a co-ed education in a boarding environment where I was still close enough to home that I could get home if I wanted to for a weekend, it was a fantastic stepping stone to university. By the time I got to university, I was pretty unfazed by the whole like moving out of home thing. And I was also pretty unfazed by like being around, you know, the colourful cast of characters that you have around you in the real world. So in that way, it was a fantastic transition. I will say that, like, I don't know if anything can really compare you for the academic rigour that you encounter in Oxford. That was intense. But I do feel like the fact that I didn't sink, I think implied that I had good training from my teachers here in how to apply myself to that as well.
And this educational journey continues, as you say, you go to Scotland, University of Edinburgh.
Yes.
More big words, guys. Where you did Master in Applied and Behavioural Science.
Yes.
Is this kind of where the seed was sown for what you do now, do you think?
Yes, certainly. So applied behavioural and cognitive science, that applied bit is the really important bit. It's about taking all of these maybe academic, sometimes a little stuffy, a little detached from the real world concepts and making them feel very resonant to the real world. It's about taking these scientific principles, models, theories, and saying, can it help us understand and improve things in the real world? So that was what I spent my master's doing. It was really fascinating. I wrote my postgrad thesis on how we could be better designing fact checks to more effectively fight fake news. And this was in like 2016, around the time of Brexit, when there had been a lot of like mis and disinformation campaigns going on. So I really loved that application focus of thinking about how can we take what we understand about the mind and human behaviour and try and apply it to real world problems.
So it's looking at the scientific side of it and putting it to everyday
into practice
and real people as well.
Real people. It is fascinating. I'm yet to find someone who isn't enthralled in their own way by that question. People, even actors and creatives, are also fascinated with why people think and act the way that they do. They just come at it through the lens of, acting or dance or music. But they're all exploring a similar
So
space.
there's an element of it in everyone, isn't there? Because we'll all make decisions and maybe go, why did I do that? And I suppose that's a very small bit of behavioural science, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah.
Behavioural scientists, guys.
Honestly, we're BS is everywhere, as I like to say. Like the program I run now is called That's Just BS.
Yeah.
A tongue-in-cheek, somewhat whimsical name for a behavioural science platform.
Yeah.
But as its core, it's getting at the fact that that thing that you're struggling to explain and why that person did that thing or said that thing or thought that way is probably behavioural science at the end of the day.
Yeah.
BS is everywhere.
It's the most incredible and interesting thing I think I've spoken to anyone about. So I will pick your brain up maybe after, otherwise we'll be going for hours. So you joined Google in 2019. Now, you've moved up really, really quickly with 2024 now, which is only 5 years. It probably feels maybe longer than that. I don't know.
I'm actually, funnily enough, like almost to the day approaching my 5-year anniversary.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
No way. Yeah. We're celebrating everything today. Birthdays, anniversaries.
It's a big month.
It's a big month. So that's in 2019. But before that, as you said, you did your TED Talk. That's 2018. 2018,
yeah.
Talk to me about that, because this is huge. This is like, the cherry on the icing of the cake when it comes to interviewing TED Talks. What was because Disney, talk to the Disney link. I loved. Tell me about that.
So, yes, as any, young adult that has grown up around the Disney movies, and in particular as a young woman, you grew up around the Disney Princess franchise, a supremely powerful, influential, pervasive social phenomenon is the Disney Princess franchise. You can't get beyond age 5 without having been exposed to it in probably a powerful and often incredibly positive way.
Sure.
These are incredibly warmly regarded movies, but I was really interested from a combination of like economics, philosophy, and language. What can we understand about these movies and how far they have come, but also how far they have left to go. And for instance, like there's some fascinating research by some fantastic sociolinguists called Fort and Eisenhower, who really inventively thought, well, let's look at who's actually speaking in the Disney Princess movies. And they did a fantastic analysis of the percentage of lines in all of the Disney Princess films that are spoken by male and female characters. And you'd be shocked to hear, for a movie that is primarily almost always led by women, if not two women in the case of the Frozen movies, to hear that the majority of lines are still delivered by men.
So why is that?
Well, this is really getting into the TED Talk now, but basically it all seemed to really kick off when Disney went through a big renaissance with like The Little Mermaid and that era of movies where they started really emulating the style of Broadway and West End musicals. Big casts, like the cast numbers just hugely inflated. And when you add in all of these like supplemental characters to the story, these sidekicks, these bakers, these librarians, you run into this social phenomena of the male by default. Like if you have a teacher, a sidekick, a butcher, a baker, almost always they are male by default. So when it's all of these little lines that creep in throughout the film that are spoken by male characters was one of the big reasons that Ford and Eisenhower gave for why you see this disparity in the ratio of lines. So yeah, it's fascinating. And like as you know, was always really interested in media and its role in shaping how we think as a society, but I was also really interested in women's issues and representation of women on film. So I was fascinated by this question of how we are representing women in film, and arguably the most powerful example of that is the Disney Princess franchise. It's just incredibly pervasive and powerful, and so I was really interested in how we could learn about doing it
Your
better.
TED Talk is online, is the people can go and watch the
It is online, it's
yes.
on TED.com. It's called The Power and Problem of Princesses.
Love, great title.
But yeah, I also am just like a huge admirer of the Walt Disney Company and Disney movies and Pixar movies as well, I should say. We go into that a bit in the talk as well. So I was also just like really interested in, as a genuine admirer of the work, like what is there to respect and applaud about how far it's come, and what is there to acknowledge about where it has still to go.
Have you also interviewed the CEO of TED?
I have,
is he
yes.
called Ted? No.
He's called Chris Anderson.
Is that not the most terrifying interview to conduct ever?
Oh, it was thrilling. It came
thrilling,
across
great.
It came across my desk at the start of this year, actually.
Ah, right, yeah.
I learned about it while I was actually over in Dublin delivering a talk there, and got the email through from the Talks at Google team, which I work with. I do a number of interviews with them where Talks at Google's a fascinating platform. It has, I think, a good few million YouTube subscribers. We had Barack Obama on it, Lady Gaga on it, a huge platform.
Huge.
And we were having Chris Anderson come to talk about his new book, Infectious Generosity, and they asked if I could be his interviewer, and it was just the most incredible opportunity.
Wow, great, exactly, opportunity again.
Yeah, back at it.
So it's interesting, the CEO of TED. That is
and he's British, and he's also been to Oxford, and he also studied a degree that had philosophy in it.
Did
so I was like,
that would be phenomenal if he did.
do you know what? I could absolutely see Chris Anderson as having come to Hurtwood. He is as you would expect from the man that has had a front row seat to some of the most influential talks of our generation. Has an incredibly flexible, imaginative mind and outlook on the world. And Infectious Generosity is kind of a wonderful encapsulation of the philosophy that he has been imbued with after all of these years of learning about the world through TED Talks. A wonderfully warm, generous, creative person that would have been well at home at Hurtwood, I think.
Yeah, incredible opportunity, so good. Let's talk more on Google. So 2019 comes around, you join them as a UX researcher.
Yes. UX stands for user experience. It means that you are concerned with understanding the experience that a user is having on the product, and how it might be going not great, how it can be going better, where it's going really well, what it should look like in the future. It's a really fantastic discipline that really puts you in the trenches of the real people using a product. And as someone that works on Google search, which has 4 billion people around the world using it, it's amazing to be really in the trenches with those people, listening to what they love, what they want to change, what they want in the future.
Incredible. And then you move up and become the senior UX researcher.
So I started as like a regular, I'm now a senior UX researcher, and I lead a product called Results About You, which is a privacy-oriented feature on Google search that is a tool that helps people find, monitor, and remove their personal information from Google search results.
Also, you're also a behavioural science consultant at Google.
Yes.
So using what you did at uni and do that. So what's the day-to-day with that kind of
Precisely.
side of your job?
So there was a brief interval when I finished my academic career where I worked in marketing and public relations. I worked with the Irish branch of Ogilvy, and actually was partly brought on both to like work on public relations campaigns, which are a lot about behaviour change and trying to influence social behaviour, but is also largely, benefits from behavioural science applications. So elsewhere in the world, like in London and New York, they're things called like nudge units, like, and they're basically like behavioral science teams that are trying to apply like our understanding of the mind and human behavior to inform the strategy of campaigns and advertising and marketing and all these types of things. Quite common across the pond, but in somewhere like Ireland, much more nascent.
Sure.
So I've been brought in to set up a behavioural science consultancy within Ogilvy. And so I'd had a bit of experience in doing something like that before I came to Google. Came to Google and fully expected there to already be some kind of a behavioural science education team, program, platform. And though Google does have a behavioural sciencey team, it's called the Behavioural Economics team, and they are led by Maya Shankar, who's a fantastic, she was on Obama's administration working on how to improve public policy issues with behavioural science. She now runs the Behavioural Economics team in Google, and they do great research and run experiments using behavioural science to inform marketing and all these types of things. But there's no one like teaching Googlers this stuff. So there's a lot of fantastic, like what we call employee resource groups in companies like Google, where you have employees teaching each other about their area of expertise such that it will benefit them in their work or in their life. And I fully expected there to already be something like that for behavioural science. But luckily there wasn't. And so there was a bit of a gap in the market, as they say. And I thought I can run something like this and
to help everyone else, because it seems like a lot of the focus is on the work of, I'd say the public, I don't know what the official term you use it as, but the users, I suppose, of Google. That's all the focus. But you've got to focus on yourself sometimes. And
absolutely. Like, you know, even in a company like Google, the people that you're interested in serving aren't just your users. A lot of times it's our advertising partners, or your stakeholders, your teammates, your manager, your reports, if you're a manager yourself. So there's a lot of different BS in terms of like understanding how to work with people well, how to promote inclusive, diverse environments, and of course then the users themselves, like how to create products that are building trust, that are proving helpful and imaginative and enjoyable to use. So there's lots of different ways in which behavioral science touches the work in a place like Google. And at this point, thankfully, That's Just BS is something that serves audiences within and beyond Google at this point.
Sure.
So yeah.
It is everywhere, like you said earlier, which is an amazing thing to say. But I think it's really important as well, I want to ask you about this, is switching off and looking after yourself, because you're doing so great thing to help humankind, if you like. But how do you switch off? Let's talk New York. You live in New York.
I do.
What is life like in New York? Different to Holmbury Hill here at Hurtwood? I would imagine.
I don't know if you could go farther, to be honest. I mean, like, New York is the city that never sleeps. I always found Hurtwood to be a fantastic place where you could always sort of come back to a sense of rest. Like, I was in Peace Lake boarding house. I always found even just like that slight physical separation between the boarding house and Hurtwood to be a decompression opportunity. You know, that rattly shuttle bus ride down the narrow paths would help physically shake a lot of stuff out of the system. I think for me, like, having a degree of separation is really important, being able to compartmentalize. It's hard for someone who instills a lot of identity in my work, as I think a lot of people who are passionate and who are lucky enough to have ended up in lines of work that are genuinely really well aligned with who they are and what they're genuinely interested in the world. It's really hard to switch off. It's really hard. Like, I'm on holiday right now. I often find myself thinking about things going on at work and itching to get back to the problems, to the problems that I was working on. And in some ways that's a great privilege and something I'm very lucky to work on, something that is genuinely enjoyable and meaningful to me, but you still have to find a way to give your mind and your body a break.
So tell me and our lovely listeners how you managed to represent Ireland at the Lacrosse World Cup in 2022, because that feels like that's not a little 2-week holiday, is it?
I do worry sometimes when I say these things that then you sort of take a look on paper at what I've been up to and it's like, the math isn't mathing.
Incredible. So I myself are half Irish. My dad used to play lacrosse as well, so he's very excited about this. So tell me how that all came about.
So I actually didn't play lacrosse at all when I was here. It was like a brief spell when I took a break from it. But I had played lacrosse before I came to Hurtwood.
Oh, you had?
I picked it. I actually didn't really play it in Oxford either, but I picked it back up again in Edinburgh. Scotland have a fantastic lacrosse team. And by the time I was over in Dublin, by the time I was joining Google, I had been playing lacrosse for several years, and the World Cup was coming around. And funnily enough, I had been in Ireland just long enough and playing lacrosse in Ireland just long enough to qualify for one of 2 spots on the team that can be filled. If they don't have to do this, but you can fill 2 spots on the team of 20 with someone who is a resident non-citizen. So someone that's been living in the country for long enough, but may not have a passport. I'm not even half Irish. No. I am 100%. Right, exactly. So that was kind of logistically how it came about. But I love the sport. It's a fantastic team sport. It's going to be in the Olympics for the first time in the next Olympics.
You going?
I
wish. You going?
I wish. It's not often in life that we know the last time of something when it's happening.
It's very true, yeah.
But when I was in the World Cup, I knew it was the last time I would be there.
It.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I love that phrase you just said.
First and last.
I was in Ireland, I played lacrosse and the World Cup was coming up. It's like, I play football, the World Cup's coming up in a few weeks. I ain't going to play for England though, am I? I just love that you can literally do anything you want. And before we wrap up and talk on final bits of advice, I want to talk about being a good communicator. Because it's such an honour to interview someone that has this wealth of experience in interviewing. I mean, the talks at Google that you've already spoken about and just these TED Talks. So, mainly for myself and personal growth. What is the key, do you think, to being a good communicator? Not only necessarily in interviewing, but I guess in life.
It's funny, it brings me back to one of my previous points about ego.
Right.
I think when you're speaking, it can be very easy to fall into the fallacy of thinking that this is a moment about me. And actually, I see speaking as about impacts that you're trying to have on the person you're communicating with. Whether that's you're in a meeting and you're talking with someone, or you're in an interview talking with someone, or you're standing on a stage talking to a group of people. It's actually, I think, less about like you and how you think you're coming across or sounding or what you want to say, and more about what your audience wants to hear and what is going to be of benefit to them, how you can deliver it in a way that is clear and comprehensible. That's the first thing. Like, I think a lot of the time we get so caught up in trying to be memorable that we forget to even be comprehensible. Like, you need to make sure that you're really really clear in what you're trying to say, speaking just like accessibly, speaking slowly, not rushing, making the point clearly. So I think it's more about your audience and making sure that they're coming along with you for the ride and that you're giving them the rides they want to have rather than trying to drag them unwillingly down at somewhere they don't want to go. So I think you need to take that ego out of the equation and think about it less as like, how am I looking and sounding, and more about what's the experience my audience are having here.
The content that they're getting.
And the content that they're getting. Yeah, exactly.
Write that down. Less ego. Fantastic.
And like, again, to hark back, the less is more thing, the subtractive solutions. Like, have you do this a lot? You've been in a talk, have you like been speaking to someone in an audience of something, some speaker in the last week?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Yes.
How many points do you think you can remember?
Myself?
Yeah, from that talk.
Probably not a lot.
Very, like, if I could ask you to like instantaneously like pluck out something that you had been taught during that time. Like, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Most of us couldn't.
No, it's pretty
Most
tough.
people in like, especially in corporate environments, they're on team calls and things where they're being told things and told numbers and things all the time. So we're information overloaded at this point, right? Even just like being online, you're watching TikToks, you're watching YouTube videos, you're ingesting content all the time. To be truly impactful and memorable, if you can just have one thing that you said to an audience, and not even all of the audience, if you can have 10% of the audience remember one thing that you said a week away, right? That is better than most will be doing. As you say, like, probably to struggle, remember even one thing from a talk that you've been in the last week. So I try and always remember that as well. Like, we often think like, I need to shove as much into this time as possible, but I think really you have to distill it down to like, what is if 10% of these people remember one thing of what I'm saying in a week's time, what do I want that one thing to be?
Yeah.
And then your job becomes like, how can I communicate that most effectively?
Exactly. Just actually just pinpoint one thing, don't overthink it, and just get your point across, that key point as well. Yeah. I'm just going to start doing that. These are going to get so much better now, guys. Let's talk, you've mentioned it quite a bit already, but that's just BS. Yeah. It's an award-winning platform, so congratulations on that. It educates and entertains and with the powers of behavioural science. Yes. We've spoken about it all. If you can summarise that.
I would say, as I said before, BS is everywhere because people are everywhere. And we are all BS. We are all behavioural science, and we're the other kind of BS too sometimes. Yeah. And I think the program is about trying to give people the tools and the cheat codes to understanding that BS. Because once you do, a lot of the world unlocks and becomes much clearer and easier to navigate. So that's what I would say it boils down to. And ultimately, like, if you are interested in people, or if you have to deal with people, if you yourself are a person simply dealing with yourself, there is stuff of benefit to you in behavioral science. And I hope that I see my contribution to the field as being someone that can take all of this very powerful stuff we've learned about people in all these years and translate it in a way that feels super like application focused to the real world.
And simplify it as well, yeah.
Quite frankly, entertaining. You know, a little bit of Hurtwood in there. Like, I think people learn best when they're being entertained. Most of the morals and life lessons and cool things we learn about life, we don't learn in schools. We learn in movies and songs and theatre shows.
So there's
adding
that as well.
Yeah, you got to have a little bit of that Hurtwood in there too.
Magic, which I love.
Yeah.
What's the direction you want to see that go in, that platform? What's next?
Again, to bring it back, I would love to like consult with companies like Disney and Pixar. I would love to like move into that direction of working with some of the world's finest storytellers and help them take all of this incredible BS and apply it to the fantastic stories they're telling. Whether it's learning about a fascinating little tidbit about the mind that inspires some Pixar movie in 10 years' time, or whether it's simply helping people working in Disney to work more effectively with each other. You know, being able to work more with creative companies and consult with them would be an absolute dream, and one that I'm, to our starting message, one that I'm trying not to just dream about, but actually do the work to make happen.
Achieve it as well. Yeah. It's just been so fascinating. I've learned so much today, so I hope everyone listening and watching has as well. I want to end, if I can, with some quick fire little advice questions.
Hit me.
So imagine you've got all your Hurtwood students watching here, and we're now going to make loads of you. I know we didn't want to churn out Sausage Factory like you described it earlier. So one single bit of advice to achieve the dream.
Find what is most important to you and prioritise that.
Great. That's a good start. Do's and don'ts, one positive, one negative, of being successful, or what you should and shouldn't do.
Do what you want to do, not what is maybe encouraged of you elsewhere.
Okay.
Don't surround yourself with the wrong people.
Great. Really good one. Number 3, you research people and behaviour. What's one thing we can do better as humans?
Less.
Just do less?
Yep.
Fabulous. Okay. Question number 4. What's one bit of advice you wish younger Zara knew?
You can have more fun along the way.
It's a really good one. That's quite emotional, isn't it? Yeah, that's so important though as well to remember that, especially if there's someone who's young watching now who has all these hopes and aspirations. You can get there, but enjoy the journey.
As the saying goes, none of us make it out of this alive.
Yeah.
Like it's sorry to get a little somber about it, but it's like you know, you spend a lot of time working towards goals.
Yeah.
Once you get there, really relish it, really shimmy in the success and congratulate yourself, feel pride, enjoy it, and next time remember to enjoy the journey maybe a little bit more, because that's where you're going to spend the bulk of your time. Reaching the top of the mountain is mere seconds in terms of the years that you spend training to get there.
Great advice, and something I hope you do yourself now. You are.
I certainly try. I certainly
you
try.
Really should do it more if you don't. I promise you. Let's talk current Hurtwood students. What's your one bit of advice so they can live their life to the full here, like you did?
Get more out of your teachers. There is such a wealth of care and wisdom and intelligence in the staff here. You are paying as much for the people you are learning from as simply the beautiful environment and the qualifications. Like really, like teachers have so much to teach you if you will truly open up your ears beyond just the obligatory time you have to spend in a classroom. Sure.
And my final question is, if there's someone watching, listening, we spoke to a lovely girl, didn't we, earlier, who said they watched this before they came here, which is great.
Wow.
For me. And so they do watch it. So if people are watching who are wanting to come to Hurtwood, it doesn't have to be quick fire this answer, you can if you want. What's your advice to why they should do it? Why choose Hurtwood House?
This is the place that, as I said, will give you the space and the support to be who you want to become. It is a better environment than any I've come across to helping put your finger on the pulse of what makes you tick and how to do it well and enjoy it. And there are very few spaces that will give you both that space and that support. Like I say, it is that beautiful balance of giving you the room to stretch how you want to stretch, but once you're there, helping lift you up and give you what you need. So it's an incredibly precious thing. And the rest of the world is not designed to be so supportive, right? It's the wonderful thing about these years we have in education is that we have a support system around us that starts filtering away when you get out into the real world. So I haven't experienced a support system any better than the one I got here at Hurtwood. And I think you can spend a lot of time, as indeed I did, thinking about getting this grade in that, or this accomplishment in that respect, or this piece of paper. And that is important, don't get me wrong, but the intangible skills that you come away with are just as important, and I think Hurtwood is a marvellous place for that. I'm so glad I came.
The most incredible final line. Zara, happy birthday.
Thanks.
Hope you've had a lovely birthday studying with me. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for the cake, guys.
You're welcome. Zara, everybody. We really hope you're enjoying the second series of Hurtwood Beyond the Hill. Remember, if you'd like to watch any of our previous episodes, you can check them out on Hurtwood's YouTube channel, or just listen wherever you get your podcasts.